Hello, and welcome back, General. We have probably about the last shell map I'm going to show. This one's a little more extensive. Certainly longer than all the other ones, which is why I had to speed it up. This one's pretty interesting for several reasons. I think people know by now that shell maps have a mixture of units that are invincible and others that aren't. We also have the often returning experience bar or experience gain that some of the units do get. But when shell maps kind of progress a little too long, you get a couple problems. Namely one that we'll see in short order. There's just a sort of limitation on where some units can go, and in a sort of MMO style, you can drag units to the quote-unquote wrong locations and sort of mess with the shell maps themselves. Granted, you have no control over this, neither do I, so it's kind of just up to blind luck. It's funny regardless, but interesting. And, every so often you have a Helix helicopter that just endlessly spins. We'll see here shortly how there's at least one Dragon tank that's kind of not where it's supposed to be, and just invincible. For the second playthrough of the General's Challenge, I'm not going to bother doing it on hard difficulty. There's no real point.
General Dow versus General Towns.
You're not in my class, General. Try an easier opponent.
General, our opponent has a stronghold in the middle of the city. His laser defense system is devastating, but requires lots of power. He will be forced to divert his power to one point of defense at a time. Use this to your advantage.
There you go, General. I've drawn the line in the sand. Now I dare you to cross it. Come and get me, General.
So, as mentioned, there's no point showing hard again. I got luck of the draw in being against Towns as the first general. I didn't really think about the orders and how that would play out. So hey, it worked out in the end. There's going to be a few things that I'm going to be showing through these videos. Mainly just what you should expect from lower difficulties, as well as just sometimes seeing the different strategies you might have with the various factions. So for example, General Dow is kind of hard to actually use MiGs effectively. There's just something about the general lineup that you're going to be coming across that doesn't allow for the effective use of MiGs. So for example, fighting General Towns, he's got lasers. You're going to be going up against General Granger, who's just capable of eliminating the Nuke missiles. When you go up against the Stealth General, you can't really see where your targets are. The problem seems to repeat itself frequently. Additionally, I'm also going to be cutting in some easy playthrough stuff with Dr. Thrax, just because honestly, not much really changes. The obviously lower difficulty you go, the easier it is in almost all cases, and you just end up with not really a lot to say. Also, there's no real point showing you 3 playthroughs of some of the exact same stuff, so might as well save us all some time. So a few things that Towns does, at least on medium difficulty, he likes to send some Comanches after you. It's pretty typical for towns to send infantry into the city and just kind of harass you that way, or create these like weird checkpoints. he also enjoys sending Colonel Burton after you, which I thought was interesting. It's like the only time that you ever really encounter a super soldier. Jarman Kell makes an appearance every once in a while. It's still pretty infrequent and rare, and Black Lotus is like never even mentioned by anybody, which I kind of would have figured would have been part of General Ling's arsenal, or at least not just visible, but actually used. In any case, I noticed the decisive clicking of some bombs. And unfortunately for me, the AI loves to use timed explosives rather than remote detonating, which is problematic because I don't really have a way to save my propaganda center now. I'm actually not sure if the propaganda center would have survived, but I don't really want to risk it, so I might as well just sell it. Strangely, as soon as you sell something, it eliminates the timed explosive, so you don't really have to worry about quote-unquote losing your investment with it. There's a problem against towns that we'll see against a couple other generals, and this comes up more and more as the difficulty is ramped down. You see, there's a big issue with essentially defending or attacking certain bases. General Towns has a lot of defenses, and yes, there is the quote-unquote vulnerability of just attacking from multiple directions, but the problem within that lies in you having enough forces to attack with a lot of effort through those two angles of attack. And it's not always possible. There's a lot of investment that goes just in 4 Overlord tanks, and China is, I wouldn't say the hardest in terms of getting income. That's probably GLA to a fair degree. But, that aside, it's just kind of annoying and can be long to rectify. Also, unfortunately for me, even though I had the clearing, I was trying to defuse landmines and whatnot, that doesn't actually work for Colonel Burton, which I thought was kind of interesting. You'd figure that of all the things that should support, would be that. So, whether it's Nuke General or Toxin General, the only real way to attack the bases, or the base defenses, is to essentially just nuke cannon it or get some Scud launchers. I also found out that upgrading the Scud launchers turns, and the only way to know if it's been upgraded is you'll see the solitary or twin rings on the actual mount itself.
Unit lost.
Now you might wonder why I don't have more than one nuke cannon, and frankly it's just because Town still has Comanches and an Air Force, and he tends to enjoy using them, to the point where nuke cannons kind of explode real quick. They're not particularly defensive.
Brace yourselves. China have been generous. China will grow large.
I guess the real word was armored, but regardless, once you get through at least one of General Towns' ramps, you're kinda set. Take out a couple towers that might have some rocket infantry in them, take out production or his power, and you should be fine. Also, even though I destroyed like almost all of his power, he was still fine, so at a certain point you just have to opt to take out the super weapons themselves. And here I am trying to scan literally every portion, and it turns out there's just a power plant near my one of my Overlord tanks.
Please wait, General. Dozers, build more reactors. Lasers take a lot of power.
I don't think I ever really showed off the Scout Storm. It might have gotten shown off on like the first episode of the US campaign, where it shows the Scout Storm actually being sprayed with toxins and whatever. I just figured I'd show it out.
How dare you destroy my airfield!
So against generals that we've already seen before, like I said, I'm going to try and cut out some stuff, but there's one interesting thing about being General Dao, which I couldn't really do as General Towns, which is actually push up the map. There's less of a reliance on super weapons as the Nuke General, which is, I guess, a little counterintuitive. I'm sure if I was playing on hard, or if I had more pressure to deal with, etc., I might have to switch up and go super weapons for the vast majority. But frankly speaking, the Nuke has a very long recharge time, and while it does irradiate an area for, I'm pretty sure, longer than a Scout Storm, it's not particularly helpful, I guess. Like, for all the crap I might give the particle cannon and say it's one of the worst super weapons, it does at least have a good recharge time, and that's worth a lot if you can purchase and deploy like 10 of them.
What are you doing in here? The recipes are mine!
I should also mention too that the fact that Nuke General only really gets artillery and the Nuke Carpet Bomber kind of makes it a pain to attack certain locations, or, for example, against General Towns, take out his power. The Nuke Carpet Bomber is particularly vulnerable. It doesn't receive any sort of defensive bonus in comparison to the regular Carpet Bomber. It's just kind of deals a bit more damage and leaves radiation, I guess. One of the major problems actually of playing as Nuke General really is the fact that the further you progress through the General's Challenge, and at the very least the higher difficulty or more difficult generals you have to face, the biggest issue tends to be not losing your units. While Nuke tanks are more effective, at least in the base variants, the problem really is the fact that you have no real ability to prevent a sort of damage or explosive cascade.
Stay away from my scouters. I'll give them to you when I'm ready.
Unit lost.
We've seen it before in, I believe, the hard difficulty, where a couple tanks have blown simultaneously, and we'll see it again, where Battlemaster tanks are cheap, they can be effective, but really if you don't have the isotope stabilization, when one tank goes, they're always packed together, and you're typically going to lose most, if not all of them. It's kind of just unfortunate.
I didn't need that anyway.
Another issue that kind of gets seen a little more in medium and easy difficulty, probably more so in medium, is you tend to
It's killing you.
like finish off an opponent like at 90%, and then there's just something that, you know, there's a builder that's left and they start a foundation somewhere and it doesn't tell you, there's no way to reveal these units, etc. So you just kind of play the waiting game. I'm sure there's some better targets I could have had for my Overlord tank. I saw at least one worker drive around. But again, the problem is that there's one lying around somewhere, and I don't know where he is. And I have one building that manages to take out all my Overlord tanks. I was hoping to get both of them together, maybe solve an issue that way, but alas, not the case. Overlord tanks are good, but not that good. Kind of slipped my mind as well that, you know, this map has several buildings that are outside of the main construction and not just in the top left. So even though I clear out this entire area, I still have to go through to the bottom right corner of the map, and there's at least one black market that I still have yet to finish. It's really more just delaying the inevitable. And even if I had nukes, it wouldn't destroy the holes that the buildings produce, so maybe that's what makes General Dao and the Chinese factions sometimes just a little bit harder to deal with. I mean, on the upside, at least my units don't all take extra damage, and I deal regular damage, so, you know, I can reasonably expect to advance on a building and not just simply lose my entire attacking force. It might have been a blessing in disguise to have started with towns, because sometimes I'm not quite sure how I would have approached this as Nuke General or maybe Infantry General.
Nothing can live beneath my toxic cloud, General.
And just because I might as well,
We are victorious.
here's some easy mode
Have gotten my degree from Mill Order
Toxin
College.
General.
I'll be sorting through your scraps.
Toxin General is actually kind of uninteresting. It's strange.
Do you like
You
my
can build a lot of
place?
Scud Storms, not that that's different. You also don't get a bonus or anything to Scud Storms. Sure, you have Anthrax Gamma, but
Soon, we will
in and of
control
itself,
all the
it's not a
resources.
major game changer.
Launching
Not in terms of the Scud Storm itself. So, not to say it's not useful, it just might not be as useful as it could be, I guess. Also, another strange thing I didn't quite realize until actually playing as Dr. Thrax, but you don't unlock the Scud Launcher to begin with. Why? It's like an iconic unit, and it seems like it'd be very important for Dr. Thrax. I don't know.
The beginning of the
Also, I have no clue why this Gatling cannon just does not want to do anything. I'll take it. You know, small blessing and all that, but, strange. As you can imagine, playing on easy as well as finally having Scud Storms available, I'm just gonna have my fun with them.
The next attack will be unstoppable.
I should also mention that General Dao was the only general on easy. I think. I could be wrong. Maybe Alexander had gotten something. Anyways, I'm pretty sure Dao is like the only, if not one of like two, that on easy you should expect to have a Scud Storm hit you, or a nuke hit you. Because, frankly speaking, there's just no way to kill his power because he doesn't send enough units for you to get artillery or something to then destroy his supplies.
We are victorious. Another moment